Sorry for that. Hello and welcome to to EBC Learning and our session on your career as insolvency professional. I'll just introduce you to the platform and then I'll introduce you to the presenter. Now this webinar is brought to you by EBC Learning. EBC Learning is EBC's educational initiative. You all know EBC as the Eastern Book Company, which provides you with our Supreme Court cases, journals, and legal text. Now, at EBC, the idea is to provide on demand legal education for everyone. So, if you look at the objective for which EBC Learning has come into being, is to help remove hurdles to legal education, to empower you to make life changing moves, and to help you learn and win. Our courses are also available at EBC Learning. And now, let me introduce you to our today's presenter. With me today, I have Dr. Neeti Shikha. Dr. Neeti Shikha is the head center for insolvency and bankruptcy, IICA, that is your Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, which is an arm of Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. Dr. Neeti has done her LLM from University College London and her PhD from NLU, Jodhpur. She has really vast experience in the academic settings at various law schools and at business schools, not only in India but also in Singapore. She is a trainer and coach for various management development professional programs and has trained professionals from ICAI, that is your Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Airport Authority of India. She serves as honorary advisor, public policy to Lexis Foundation. She works as independent consultant to the Center for Civil Society, New Delhi. She is also on board of Government Bind India, Government Bind HTO, a London-based international think tank, as a leader and expert for law and policy. She has authored several research journals and book chapters and has participated in several national and international conferences. But her passion remains towards the academia, which she started at the young age of 27. She also advocates for child and women rights, and she is the expert to go on the corporate governance. Now, as you all know, that IBC or your Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code has become the most successful tools for corporate rescue. It has opened vistas for career opportunity for young lawyers, CAs, CS, and engineers. So, how does one become an IP? What are the skill sets that one hone to become an IP? This is all Neeti will be telling you about. Now, before I hand the mic over to the presenter, just few preliminaries about the webinar. This is available on demand and a recorded version will be available on the YouTube channel of EBC Learning. And we'll of course like to hear from you and you can stick around for Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you have any question, just type in the chat part at the tab of the bottom of your player and we will take the questions thereafter. And at last, we request you to share it widely on your social networks as well. Uh, and finally, I'd like to hand over mic to Dr. Neeti Shekha to take this webinar forward. Welcome, Neeti.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Charu, for such a humbling introduction. At the onset, let me begin with expressing my gratitude to EBC Learning. I think as old as our memory takes, EBC has been a pioneer in legal education. And many judges of this country, many law professors like me and law students and lawyers like your kind self would have, gone back to the resources of EBC, the quality of which we can never doubt. And I'm really thankful that I'm here with you today. Dr. Charu asked two questions as to how do you become an IP, insolvency professional, and what are the skill sets required? Let me go back to the background of how this profession came in India. In 2016, India introduced, a sea change regulation in corporate laws through the introduction of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. IBC was the first law in India which was truly market centric and truly liberalized law, if I can say so. And why I say so is because at the helm of it, you had a market force that helped people to resolve their business issues. And business issues by here, I mean, you're basically restructuring, rescue of business. Before IBC, we had a regime which did not work out in India well for multiple reasons. I will not go into that. But with coming of IBC, I can definitely say that there was a huge demand for individuals who could steer IBC as a law, as a mechanism. Usually we say in our profession that IBC is just a tool for resolution. At the heart of IBC lies resolution of companies, which means business rescue. And it is a tool, it is a mechanism to allow companies to rescue themselves from the stress that they're facing. So imagine a patient who's in ICU. Dr. Sa, who's the chairperson of IBBI, famously says that it's like, a patient who's in ICU, and you need experts who could really get the patient out of ICU and get them back in the health. Now, to do that, for the first time, India introduced a profession called insolvency professionals. It was the first time that India learned about this concept. It was very much prevalent in the UK and the US. And the role of IP was basically to get into the driver's seat and help the company, drive towards recovery, towards rescue. Under the IBBI regulation, there are three ways that a person can become an IP. The first path is if you have experience of 10 years or more as a chartered accountant or a lawyer, or 15 years as an MBA professional, you could take up limited insolvency examination, and if you qualify, you could register yourself as an IP. So this is the first route. The second route is the graduate insolvency program, for which you need to be a CA, CS, lawyer, engineer, or master's in economics, finance, or law. And you could take up an all India examination called GIPSET, and you could sign up for this course called GIP, and you could become an insolvency professional. The third route, which is still not floated, which is not announced by IBBI, which is still not started in India, is National Insolvency Program, NIP, wherein the intention of the government is to allow young people who just qualified 12th to take up this integrated course to become an insolvency professional. So as I told you, there are three routes. First is to be an experienced professional for 10 years and take up the limited insolvency examination. If you qualify the examination, you can register yourself as an IP. The second route is to take the GIP. And the third route is, which is still not active yet, which is National Insolvency Program. These are the three routes. Now, in the beginning, till 2019, the only first route was available for people to become an IP. And most of the chartered accountants, cost accountants, company secretaries, few lawyers, they took up this, this examination, LIE, as it called, limited insolvency examination. They qualified and they could register themselves as an insolvency professional. And so this went on for a couple of years till the GIP was started by IICA. Just to give you a little brief about IICA, as Dr. Charu rightly mentioned, we work under the aegis of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. We act like a think tank for the MCA, and so IICA has its own expertise in training institutes. For example, you must have learned about the independent directors now. Independent directors have to go through a mandatory training, an examination that is also conducted by IICA. So this was the second route, and government is contemplating that with time we will be starting soon with the third route. Dr. Charu, you asked me about the skill sets. It's a very interesting question that you asked. Let me explain my viewers as to, what does an IP do that will actually, organically take you to your answer as to what skill he or she should have. If you see the average size of board in any company in India is 8 to 10. So when a company is a going concern, which means the company is doing well, there's a board of directors, around 8 to 10 directors on the board, who take all the decisions in the company. They'll take the executive decisions, the strategic decisions, financial decisions, etc. Right now, what happens in the company when the company hits, when the company is under stress, the company fears that it'll no more remain as a going concern, is that the company starts realizing that it's moving towards what we call in law is a twilight zone, right? It's a zone where you may survive, you may not survive, you may stop remaining as a going concern, which means you may land up into insolvency. So when you enter that zone, it's the company is known to be now in stress. And during the time, if the creditors feel that the company needs to be taken under CIRP process, as you know, is called corporate insolvency and resolution process, insolvency resolution process. So CIRP process, they can file for an application for CIRP. I'll not get into details of that because I think EBC has an excellent course on insolvency, which you could refer, and it'll tell you the whole details about that. But just coming back to the point that when the CRP process starts, the board of directors, they lose their power. The board gets suspended. So imagine a company which has a board size of 8 to 10, and the board is suspended. And here comes a person who's known as insolvency professional, who steps into the shoes of of what a BOD would do, and all the powers of say 8 to 10 directors subsumed into one individual called IP. So IP is the person who basically acts for the company. Company is known as corporate debtor. When the CRP process begins, they're known as corporate debtor. So they act for the corporate debtor. They take the strategic decisions, the decisions for finance, the operation, etc. Right? So IP is invested with colossal power under IBC. Now imagine, what does it take to become a CEO of a company? It would take skills like having financial knowledge. It will take you skills like having knowledge of accountancy, having the soft skills, to have those skills to, to be able to communicate effectively to your shareholders, to other board members, to creditors, etc. You also should have skill of, we call it, gravitas. You should have that kind of gravitas to, to command it, the kind of respect on the board, to ensure that your stakeholders give you ears, they follow your instructions, they give you, support in times of need. So IP is a person who's taken over a company which is in stress, which is in distress, where you would know, I mean, naturally, you would know that there are a lot of people who would be fighting for their rights and for their interest. So IP needs to have a lot of skills, uh, technical side, they have to have the knowledge of IBC, which is paramount. They need to have the knowledge of security laws. They need to have the knowledge of, the company laws, the compliances under Companies Act. They also need to have financial knowledge. They need to have knowledge of accountancy, taxation, etc. I can talk about it in details later. And on the soft side, they need to have good and effective communication skill. They need to have, a mediation skill, because when you're negotiating the rights and interest of various stakeholders, you need to come to a common platform. You need to arrive to a consensus. So consensus building through negotiation or mediation, they should be good at that. So there are many things that you need to have. And if you look at the course, the first route that I talked about, becoming an IP, which is having 10 years experience, it is assumed that by the dint of experience that you have for 10 years, you would have acquired these skills. I must make a mention here that there could be some skills that you may or may not still have it, despite you having 10 years experience. For example, mediation under IBC. There's a huge career option coming for young people in individual insolvency, which if Dr. Charu poses more, would like to know more, I can talk about it. So, the kind of skills that you need for those areas is very, very different from what they may have garnered over 10 years. In a GIP, we ensure that we give you these hands-on experiences and we give you training in these areas. So yeah,
Right.
Dr. Charu,
Yeah.
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 I'm
So
sorry I
that
took a very long answer to your short question.
no, no, that is really enlightening. The second thing I wanted to ask you, like if we go to the first route to become IRP, that is through the
Right.
limited insolvency examination, if you could throw the light on the structure and what type of an exam it is, online, offline, and all
Dr.
those things.
Charu, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
sorry I
that,
took a very long answer to your short question.
no, no, that is really enlightening. The second thing I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, see, the first route, which is having 10 years experience and taking limited insolvency examination. It's a LIE exam. Anyone can take it actually. Even if you have less than 10 years experience, you could take LIE exam. In fact, I encourage you all to test your knowledge and go on IBBI website and register for the exam. But you cannot register as an IP till you give the certification of experience. So that is the difference. So to tell you about the syllabus, limited insolvency examination syllabus is really a deep dive into IBC. So you're expected to be thorough with cases under IBC. You're expected to be thorough with IBC provisions because you have experience, and minute you get the license, you'll be on job. So the expectation from that cadre of professional is that you should be thorough with IBC code, IBC. You should be thorough with the cases under IBC. uh, Syllabus is available on IBBI website. They also have some sample questions, so you could go through it. They ask questions from finance, accounting, law. In law, they ask questions from Companies Act, Securities Act, security laws, financial market regulation. They ask questions on contracts, sale of goods, transfer property, and then you also need to have basic knowledge of other laws, other elite laws. Uh,
right,
Taxation is also one part. So imagine whatever laws that has an intersection with insolvency that may come into, foreplay when the insolvency strikes. Those are the laws that you should be aware of. Deep diving into definitely IBC, case laws, and Companies Act, finance, accounting, and they also ask you in ethics. In fact, I must stress upon ethics because ethics is seen as one of the uh, um, focal focus area of insolvency profession. So, be it the limited insolvency exam or GIP, ethics is really given high regard. Having said that, in GIP, the ethics is given more weightages compared to limited insolvency exam. Now, limited insolvency exam is a proctored exam. You can sit at your home and take it, and there's a negative marking for that. So 25% negative marking, and you need to qualify 60% and above to qualify for the exam. And it does update it. The syllabus does get updated, so you have to really be abreast with what is the latest syllabus. And for that, I strongly recommend that you go to IBBI website and refer to the syllabus and the sample questions. There's some questions from the viewers, Dr. Charu.
yeah. Before that, I would just like if you can just stress upon the case laws form a very important part of LI exam. So if you can suggest how people can prepare for the case laws portion.
See, there are 2 to 3 things you should do. Firstly, IBBI comes with a newsletter, monthly newsletter, and you must try to sign up for that and read it. It's available on the website. And the beauty of the newsletter is that whatever is going in the area of restructuring, where IBC has a role to play, everything is summarized very beautifully, very simplistically in that newsletter. So you must read newsletters very thoroughly, and so that is first resource that you should look at. The second is, if you're active on LinkedIn groups and other groups, then EY has formed a very good restructuring group. Of course, it's based on participation is based on request, but they come up with their bulletins, and that's also very, very useful for that. Then you have to just keep abreast with what's happening in insolvency. I'm sure EBC has some very good courses, and the EBC updates, you have to sign up and read that. And so you need to really be thorough with the cases that's coming. And the beauty of the law is that IBC is a very organic law and it's a very recent law. So, um, and most of the laws are very interesting to read. Some of them have made, brought a huge sea change in the way we look at, the provisions, or which in the way we read the provisions. So my suggestion is these are the few areas you should look at, and be, very active on the discussion groups, read the resources well. You have the judgments. Some cases have gone to till Supreme Court under 142. Read those judgments. For the judgments, as a lawyer, I always read SEC cases, and even at ISCA, we encourage people to read SEC cases over other resources. You have some free online case resources now. Supreme Court also has its, has a repository. I think the beauty of SEC case laws is that the head notes are very well crafted. So it's very interesting, that how very lucidly they have captured everything in the head notes. So in case you don't have time, you can just read through the head notes. So definitely. So
I'll
summary,
just take one very interesting question. It is from Dhananjay Sharma. He's
please.
asking, apart from qualification, how does LIP differs from GIP with respect to workload, work specifications, and remuneration? Yes,
Uh,
come to the point.
I think Dhananjay, thank you for asking that question. It's a very good question you've asked. Um, See, LIE and GIP are two different routes. So if I can say it's like an apple and an orange, but both are fruits, right? And both are healthy. So it's something like that. So LIA is for the experienced professionals, and the examination pattern is different. You need to have very sound knowledge of IBC and other lead areas. Unlike in GIP, where we look at the aptitude and not the subject knowledge, because that is what we do in the 2 years. So, limited insolvency exam is just an exam, it's not a course, there's no training given. You qualify, you just on the job. Unlike GIP, where if you qualify, you're trained for 2 years with us, with ISCA, which is basically under the MCA. And so you go for training. 1 year you stay with us, 1 year go to the industry. So 1 year when you're with us, we teach you a bunch of courses. 90% of the courses are taught by insolvency professionals and the leaders in the field. And I'll give you in a bit, I'll give you example how we do it. And so 1 year you spend with us training, and 1 year you go on job, you learn on job. So they're two different things. One is a course, one is exam. But for so this is one thing. Secondly, for GIP, you need to be under 28 years. Because see, understand the mandate of the government. LIE exam is already offered for those who are, qualified professionals, experienced professionals. But GIP was crafted for the young cadre, to bring out the young cadre professionals, IPs in the industry. So there's an age limit of 28 years to take the GIP examination. Unlike in LIE, where you can be of any age and take examination, right? And definitely not register unless you have 10 years experience. Now, when you talk about PA package, you please, I see industry definitely gives a lot of regard to GIP for multiple reasons. Tomorrow we're doing a webinar with industry leaders like IRC CEO, Abhijay Divanji, who's a head EY, and Vijay Iyer ji, who's a partner in Deloitte. Vijay sir was also the insolvency resolution professional for Bhushan Steel, one of the leading successful cases of cases under IBC. So we're doing you can probably sign up for that and learn more from them directly. But let me just share something with you here. GIP, you're young, you train 1 year with us, and then you go back in training. So I will not compare your remuneration with those who are already qualified. They're there. So, but these people who are qualified, who experienced IPs, they also need helping hands. So when you go to work with them, so you work like, you work with them to learn from them. So definitely there's a huge difference in pay. But, we still have the first batch going for internship. Our internship stipend has gone up to 1 lakh. And you have, international restructuring firms coming and hiring our graduates. So I would say that, definitely there's a huge scope as compared to what MBA would offer or what other courses would offer. But experience has its own charm. Uh, Having said that, there's a huge demand in market right now to do something for existing IPs, because you would know the existing IPs, they're not being train on various other fronts like soft skills, mediation. Not every IP would be good at all that, right? Unlike in GIP where we train you. So we run 40 hours of mediation training. We have negotiation exercises from a foreign faculty, who comes. US is introducing insolvency arbitration, which is not even like, I mean, it just not even started mulling over it. So these kind of things you get to learn at GIP, because it's like a repository of all intellectual discussion that's happening in India and across. Um, and let me just tell you that recently, Secretary MCA was in the UK on a government delegation, and Dr. Sahu was also there, and we were praised heavily for the course that we've designed. I mean, this was designed by a committee. There's a committee report available on IBBI website. You could read about it. And so I think it's globally first of its kind. But either you become an IP through limited insolvency exam or you take a GIP route, is up to you. But one thing I can definitely share is that there's a huge scope for, for you in this area, for multiple reasons. India has introduced, when India introduced IBC, it opened vistas of opportunities for corporate restructuring, right? Now, individual insolvencies coming into being, you'll have cross-border insolvencies. So all this, with introduction of, every time a new, this phased out introduction that's happening, it'll offer a lot of opportunities for young professionals, and especially I would say lawyers, CAs, and CS.
Do you teach them how to handle the pressure? Like I have seen a lot of IPs getting under pressure, and here again, like I had to engage one IP, and there was this gender bias. Ki, ma'am, we don't want female because they won't be able to handle the pressure. Do you train them?
You're really right. In fact, Miss Mamta Binani, who's our academic council member, and she's the first woman IP of the country registered with IBBI. In fact, there's a famous case, you should go and read it yourself. So Miss Mamta Binani was answering how she faces a lot of challenges. There was a company, she was an IRP for a company in Jharkhand, and she was sharing experience that, there was some rumors, under the current, unko pata chala that, they're planning to do something, harm IPs or something like that. So she would use her own tactics to ensure that she's able to take control of the corporate debtor's assets without going through any, threat, physical or any other threat. We have a lot of IPs coming to teach our, students, and they always say that the cases like they get life threats. There are times when promoters do not cooperate. Sometimes even directors and, officers of the company do not cooperate because, they show their allegiance to the previous promoter. So these are very, very common. And so yes, it's there. How we teach handle pressure, see, if you're experienced, you would already know how to take pressure. But in our course, I think they learn vicariously when all these people, these stalwarts, come and speak. They understand what the pressure is. For example, when the Bhushan Steel was getting, undergoing resolution, students also learned how to manage employees, because I think, they are the biggest stakeholders of the company, and there's a lot of unrest among employees as to what will happen to them. What if there's some other company acquires us? Will we retained? What happens to our benefits? So all these things we take them through, and we'll try to give the 360-degree views by calling different, different organization. Like you have Alvarez and Marshall, who, a firm that helps, companies, Aon. So these are these are also part of the insolvency ecosystem firms, which helps company when it goes through CRP process in managing various stakeholders like organization, employees, etc. So we try to give them that learning. And yeah, so I mean, in short, that is how we do it. But we also give warm view to our students, because not every case is SR Steel, right? Big companies can hire best people to manage the companies, but that's not the case with every company that's going through insolvency. So sometimes we give them warm view, in the smaller companies and SMEs, how does it happen? What are challenges? And the sets of challenges are so different, Dr. Charu. It's so different. In big companies, you have different challenges, raising finance, convincing stakeholders, convincing investors, etc. In smaller companies, the different types of challenges an IRP faces. So if you choose to be in the profession, you should know it all.
Right. Now there is one quick question from a student who is in fifth year. She says, how can she prepare for IP exams? So I think the only route available to her will be GIP because
Yeah.
she won't have the experience.
So GIP is one route. We are conducting exam on 10th May, and 20th April is the last date of application. You could apply, and then we do preparatory webinars. Maybe in future we could, probably EBC should come up with some study materials or some guide, some reference books in future, because we still right now don't have it. So IBPS is our agency that conducts examination. That's also agency that conducts for the PO exams for the country. So what we do is we take you through a preparatory webinars, and so you have to understand that we're not looking at your knowledge, your attention, but your aptitude. So you'll have to go through this, written examination. You qualify. You are invited for GDPI, and if you do GDPI well, the industry experts will come and interview you. So that's the first stage of screening that we do. That are you fit for this course? Once you do that, you join and then we also have an ethical component to measure. So we run a psychometric test online to see, where do you stand in terms of ethics. Ethics, we give a lot of weightage because we don't want to, the purpose of GIP was only to create the ethical leadership, to be very honest. So that is one thing you need to do. And if you qualify, you're welcome on the board. We have scholarships. SBI gives a scholarship. Then IIC is giving 4 scholarships from the coming batch. So we have 5 scholarships available and spot loan available. So in case you qualify, you don't have to ask anybody to fund. You can fund your education yourself. No collaterals required. It's qualified under scholars loan, which is the highest type of loan that you could get from SBI. So yeah, you could take the examination. And see, let me just tell you as a caveat that we're not a private organization. We are part of the government. And we are the only organization recognized by IBBI to conduct this course. IBBI is the regulator for this. And it takes pleasure to tell you that Dr. Sahu, who's the chairperson of IBBI himself, comes at least once in a month to teach the students. And there's a huge, it's a very good involvement of industry that we have for the course. For limited insolvency examination, how do you prepare? You go to the IBBI website and they have some sample questions. They're good. And I'm told that Mr. Agrawal has written some book for, for the preparation of LI exam. So, and I'm sure there are more books available in the market for that. My suggestion would be you can also take up this EBC course. EBC, has some very good courses, online courses for insolvency, which personally I really recommend. In fact, I recommend it to all the new students who join my course to at least go through it once. So that you could probably take. And it's very good.
I'll be sharing the course links with them at the end of the talk. Thank you for that opportunity. And there is one question which a student from HNLU Raipur, Shubham, wants to ask. He's asking how for a law student working as an IP will be different for him working in a tier 1 law firm.
I'll just tell you. So Shubham, I really encourage you join us tomorrow. Mr. Ashwin Bishnoi, who's a partner in Ketan. He'll be there. The recent judgment that you must have read, avoidance transaction judgment, that is a case which Ashwin worked on. So you do join us tomorrow on Facebook Live to tell you, see what's the difference. If you are from even top tier, if you have tier 1 law school and you get placed with a tier 1 firm, you would start as an associate and you would get to work with partners directly under partners, maybe after 5 years or something. Unlike in GIP, if you do GIP, you start working with a partner. So that is the difference in this, it sort of give you a jump start. Secondly, what happens is if you're coming from, even an LSIU, you may know the IBC, but you may not have the knowledge of finance. So as a lawyer, you would not know how to appreciate finance, accounts. You would not know how to, appreciate taxations, which the complex issues of taxation, which all training you get in my course. And let me just share with you that, in fact, this is the only course that is giving you the qualified professional. In fact, our professionals are so sought after. When we opened our training from the first day, we only have a batch of 37. We are very particular about the size of the batch. We keep it small. We have batch of 37 and we had 24 offers on day one. We only invite tier one firms to come and recruit, and most of the students have got placed with tier one firms. Mr. Bishnoi himself has come and taken expert sessions. We had an IP coming from England. We had a UK judge coming in teaching them cross borders. We had Jet Dutch administrator coming in teaching them. Mr. Shacharya, who's a Jet IRP, Mr. Ashish Chacharya from GT. He came and did a workshop. So, the kind of learning is very, very different. Also, as a lawyer, you'll be able to prepare resolution plans. See, in the end of the day, what does an IP does? He has to, like, if resolution plans are, say, submitted by the bidders, right? He has to evaluate them on certain matrix and then present it to COC, right? Now, how do you evaluate a resolution plan? What do you look at? So our students are very trained in drafting an IM, drafting resolution plan from day one when they go for the training. So this, I think, is a difference. In fact, Mamta ma'am always shares that, when she had to present the first resolution plan of the country, it was so difficult for her to even come. And of course, she did a great job. But now if you see the resolution plans is very different, because industry also got experience, it grew. So if you get trained, you would know from day one what to do. So that is the difference. Yeah.
So the next question is, I was about to ask the same thing. In the COVID scenario, how do you see IBC going forward? Do you think that government will put an embargo on filing of the cases? Will there be work for IRPs? Where do you see that?
Let me share with you. This is something which we have been mulling over internally. And I think that COVID has posed some total unprecedented challenges on all of us, right? And if you see internationally, Singapore, Australia, UK, they all have, suspended some of the provisions of their insolvency law so that insolvency does not trigger and that does not lead to ripple effect in the industry, because then the economies would just collapse. India is also, the beauty of IBCs is so organic, it's so quick in time, and especially hats off to the leadership of Dr. MS Sahu. So they have brought the changes. I don't see IBC, new cases coming up from my quiet knowledge. I'm not an IP myself, but I have interacted with a lot of IPs in this ecosystem, and I see that maybe very slow, filing. Having said that, what will pick up is restructuring, and I am a strong believer that restructuring will be something which will really pick up. In fact, you won't believe it. The only industry that's hiring today are the debt restructuring industries, right? ARCs. So what you should look at is honing your skills towards this side. And, we always see that IBC is only a tool of restructuring, right? So if you have those acquired skills of restructuring, which, like in GIP, we do that. We give them workshops on turnaround management. We give them workshop on restructuring outside IBC. Like, India's mulling over bringing pre-packs. So how do you do restructuring outside IBC? That is also another area where we have trained. So for my graduates, I'm confident that they still have a lot of value in the system right now. In fact, all of them are going for their training from 1st May at the same stipend that, that been promised by the industry. And in fact, I'm getting repetitive requests from the industry to prepone their training and not to postpone, unlike you see the scenario. Now, for you, what I will say is, you should look at, the larger ambit, look at the restructuring turnaround, look at, financial modeling of stressed assets. It's different from the usual financial modeling. If you have these kind of skills, then you'll always be relevant for any time and age.
Right. The another question is, if a person becomes a registered IP in India, is he allowed to practice anywhere in the world, particularly after doing a course from GIP?
Thank you so much. I'll just answer for IPs. That will also cover GIP. So see, right now, okay, let me begin saying this, whether you can practice in another jurisdiction or not, depends upon the reciprocity, which means does that country allow you to work in their jurisdiction, and hence, you know, India would recognize. So right now in India, foreign IPs are not allowed to work, and hence even Indian IPs cannot work outside as an IP. Now, having said that, you could definitely try to get, you know, a license there. I mean, there are certain examinations you may have to take, certain courses you may have to take, and you can definitely become, you can try to get qualification. Every jurisdiction has its own norms. I'm not much aware on that. In fact, we generally invite this gentleman. He was an IP in England, Mr. Pulkit Devra, very, very, celebrated professional in India. So we invite Mr. Pulkit Devra. He was IP and was working with GT in England for, I think, over 7 to 8 years before he came back to India. He was also a lawyer in the Swiss Ribbons case. So, so now he's working as a lawyer in India. So what I'm trying to say is that you may not be able to work as an IP, but what you could do is you could start working on the advisory side. So, for instance, there's a firm in England that wants to acquire a firm in India, and if you're an IP in India, and tomorrow you want to, no more practice insolvency as a profession, but rather go the advisory side, you could go there and start working the advisory side. In fact, a lot of lawyers do that. They have qualified the IP, they become an IP qualified examination, but they do not practice as an IP. They rather stay on the advisory side. So that is first thing you could do. Secondly, with the cross-border insolvency coming in, I think there'll be huge scope for you to go abroad. Like I interact with Rocco, Mr. Rocco from Netherlands. He's a celebrated lawyer and insolvency lawyer in Amsterdam, and he is the Dutch administrator. So there's and here in India we have Mr. Ashish Acharya. So they work very closely. Mr. Rocco has also appeared before NCLT. They had to take a special permission to allow him to appear before NCLT. But courts have been very open about it. So as the time comes, I feel that courts will be open about it. So definitely, there's a lot of scope that you could do.
There is one more question. It is coming. They are asking whether they can continue with the parallel profession. So if a lawyer become an IP, can he do both the things? CA can do both the things. CS can do both the things.
In fact, you would be surprised to know that most of the IPs in the country today, with the longer experience that they have, they do variety of work. And along with that work, like they do financial audit, they do forensic audit, and along with that work, they're also doing insolvency work, right? So definitely you could do that. The nitty-gritties of regulation you'll have to check because ICI has its own rule. You cannot take an full-time employment somewhere, as I understand, if you're on a assignment. So that you'll have to check with the, and I'll tell you where to go. So there are, every institute like CMA, ICSI, and ICAI, they have IPAs called Insolvency Professional Agencies. And you'll have to register to one of these agencies under which you'll be governed later if you become an IP. So they have their own, by rules and regulations, and that will guide you. So short answer to your question would be, yes, you could do that. Full-time employment, maybe not, while you're working on a CRP case. Yeah.
There is a student who wants to know more about what is cross-border insolvency and whether if there is a cross-border insolvency, how he can also go and practice in other institutions.
Wow, very good question. See, cross-border insolvency, basically it's a, let me explain by saying that, there are companies that are very global in nature, right? For example, I'll take example of Jet. Now, when Jet went bust in India, it had some assets in other countries also. It may have operations also in other countries. So, because of the nature, the global nature of business, insolvency in one country may trigger ripple effect, may trigger insolvency in other countries, other jurisdictions also, right? Now, this is cross borders, which means when your insolvency, involves more than one jurisdiction, this is cross borders insolvency, right? So, for instance, if Jet has most assets in India, and the insolvency, proceedings have started in where has it started? It has started in Netherlands. Now, to pay off to the creditors in Netherlands, you will have to realize the assets in India. So for that, there has to be some sort of cooperation between the two countries. So cross-border insolvency is insolvency when it involves more than one jurisdiction, and there could be various ways. They could get involved. They could resolve. Uh, so under IBC, initially there was no provision for cross-border. It was not spelled out, but now ministry has come up with, certain, regulations, certain norms. You could read that. And soon India will be signing UNCITRAL also. So UNCITRAL insolvency is one place you should look at for learning about cross borders. There's also a convention now on, enforcement of international judgments, which is trying to sort of harmonize the substantive part of insolvency. UNCITRAL only looks at the procedural part, but so it's only procedural coordination that we look at through UNCITRAL, insolvency model regulation. But there are also efforts being made by international community to have a substantive cooperation. So cross-border is a great area to work in, and especially because what happens in cross-border is you need to have a lot of need to cooperate with the other party. You need to understand the laws of the other party. What is so other laws also get attractive. For example, the private international law. For example, a case you may have France starting another case against Jet. You may have a case parallel going in other country like in Germany, where the operations were. It's just a fiction I'm taking in India. So what do you do now? Different cases of insolvency taking different countries. So you may have to sort of harmonize these and bring it together under one, to the one court, so that every creditor gets paid. Otherwise it's very fragmented. So so then the question is, where is COMI? Where's the center of main interest? Now, to determine center of main interest, you have to go to the private international rules and see where does what does the rule of the PIL suggest? Where could be this? So a lot of thing. And then enforcement of judgment. Court of Netherlands have said something. Do we Indian courts are Indian courts bound to give effect to that? Will it appreciate it? What if it's against the public policy of India? What could be the challenges to those awards? So similarly, the way you have an arbitration, national arbitration, similar sort of challenges also may arise in this. So sorry.
Yeah. So just one thing, if we can tell our viewers, like IRP, he becomes the whole and soul of the company, de facto CEO, he is there, but he doesn't work alone. There is always a team that has to work with him, like whoever is the IRP. So if you can just tell about the working of IRP, how actually does he function?
Yeah. So see, IRP is a person who becomes the face of the company, right? So if you have, if company has to be represented in COC meetings, it's IRP who has to participate, who has to be at the helm of it. So, but as you understand, depending on the size of the company, it may not be possible that everything IRP does himself. So usually he will have a team of people. Now, what kind of professionals will he have? So assuming there has to be, company's assets have to be valued. So you need to have a team of valuers with him. Assuming there are, the company still in function, it means that, the company has employees on board. Their claims have to be collected, verified. So he'll have a team to collect the claims, verify the claims, collate all the claims, and put it before the COC. So all these. So IRP is usually supported by several other professionals like tax professionals, lawyers, professionals who are good in HR, like people management and organization management, those who are good in valuation, etc. Now, one thing that has happened under, which is very unique in under Indian law of insolvency, is that there's a concept called IPEs, Insolvency Professional Entities. Now, IPEs are basically sort of consortium of people who come together to form an entity, and they usually help the IPs to carry on the CIRP process. Have I answered your question, or would you like to know more?
Yeah. So essentially, he's not. He's just the face. And there is an entire team which will be working with
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
He will be getting all the assistance
yeah.
and
Having said that, he'll have to see, he will have to have the knowledge. So he cannot depend on the acquired knowledge of the team. He needs to have. But then, depending on the size of the company, the team size may vary. But definitely there'll be a valuer, there'll be a tax professional, there'll be a financial guy. So definitely these people are there in the team.
right. And there is one question that a person who is studying in the final year, is he write GIP exam? Is he
Yeah,
eligible?
yeah, of course, yes, you can.
And one more question, like how you will be conducting this year? Is it an online exam looking at the
Online
credentials?
exam. So see, usually what we do is last year we have an agency called IBPS. You must have heard of this agency. So it conducts all the banking examinations in the country. So they conduct an examination. It is a rigorous examination, but for lawyers and CA and CS, I always tell them that it's more of an aptitude. Um, and this time we are conducting through proctored examination, which means you can be at home and take the examination, but usually you have to go to a center and do it under the supervision of a external supervision. But this time it's proctored. So everything will go online this year because of the COVID situation. Dates are not changing because we want to start on time. Because of COVID situation, we need more trained professionals from GIP who could really act timely on the company that need the rescue, that need restructuring. And if you see in India, you hardly have professionals who are really trained to act in these sort of stress companies, right? And now we want to get the next batch in on time. So no dates change. You have to you can take it online. 20th April is the last date for application. It's simple application. You have to go and apply online.
Right. So Dr. Niti, I'll just take them to the EBC Learning website where I'll
Yeah,
just
please.
show them the path,
Yeah.
because I understand the website is also going under maintenance at 5. So this is the EBC Learning website, and here we have developed a path how you can become an insolvency law professional. So at the first course that we have, where we discuss the essentials of insolvency and bankruptcy code. Thereafter, we teach you how to file an insolvency petition before the NCLT, how to send demand notice if you are a corporate debtor and all. Then there is a monthly series which we started with important cases, but we will be updating it more frequently. Then you have a panel discussion on IBC and corporate asset valuation. This is by the valuers who are registered with IBBI. And finally, we have an important course on corporate assets valuation under IPC. So as a lawyer, most of us are not uh, that comfortable with the valuation aspect of IBC. So these are the 5 courses that we have developed at EBC Learning to help you become IBC professional, IP professional, and probably you will be more confident in taking these examination, be it LI or GIP. Now, if there is any other query, then we can take that. So if there is any other query, right? So I think Dr. Niti has, I'll just 1 minute stop share I had to do. There is one question from a person. He is asking, if we clear the IRP exam before 10 years experience, how much help it will be in profession or on job front? So like if a person without having 10 years experience, he comes and join as IP, do you think it will be an impediment or in job front? Like if we want to do something else apart from being an insolvency professional?
If I understand your question correctly, then you are asking that if you clear the limited insolvency exam before 10 years but not still registered, right? Because you
Yeah.
cannot register till you have 10 years. In that case, I'm not sure if you would really get some preference. But what happens is that the day you complete 10 years and you give the requisite certifications to IBI, you could start your work with. And what probably you could do is you could be in the ecosystem and learn work. But I'm not sure you can handle those cases. Um, so I'm not sure how the industry would take that. Um, I'm told that LI exam is becoming difficult. So of course, there's a sort of lot of value attached to if you clear the exam. Um, IPE is what. So I think I've answered your question. That see, I think there's some very good IPs you can write to them. You could write to IPA of ICSI or ICAI. And Mr. Binoy is the head of IP of ICSI. I think Mr. Sunil Pant is the head of ICAI, IPA. You could write to them and they would probably guide you because they are people with vast experience and they can share with you. Or you could contact some of the IPs. Uh, so yeah,
Right. And the final question is, can IP be sued for the negligence for his performance? What are his liabilities and how much is he accountable?
you've asked a question which is so close to my heart because I always say that IBC has given colossal responsibility to IPs in under the law. So to answer question, yes, they can be sued. In fact, the whole code of conduct issued by IBBI, if you happen to have time, please go through it. And there's a whole code, that defines how an IP must behave. He has to show impartiality, he has to show objectivity, and without going into details, there had been various cases where disciplinary actions have been taken by the DC, which is the disciplinary committee of IBBI, and IBBI constantly supervises your activity, your actions, and your behavior on a case. And there could be a case for negligence. There were case where a person had a corporate debtor had uh, you know, uh, got in hands and gloves with the IP. You must have heard about 29A. What was the whole, reasons and the undercurrents that brought that change. So the answer to your question is that yes, it is. See, let me tell you one thing here that IP as a profession is a profession of national interest. If you believe that business is at the core of economy, right, then revival of business is all the more important. And hence IPs are at the core of of revival, of rescue of a business. What they're doing is a national service. So to become an IP, you need to have that kind of the ethical the ethics, the integrity, the honesty, and the commitment to job. And if you fail to do so, of course, there are disciplinary actions. There could be cases against you. You lose your name, you lose your value, hell lot more. Why? Because a single mistake from your side could really make or mar a company's future.
Right, Dr. Neeti, thank you so much for your time and answering so many queries. And it is really a learning experience for all of us here. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Thank you
much.
so much, Dr. Charu. And I once again thank you, especially for having me to here today, and to EBC for making for conducting these useful webinars in times of COVID. I think this is one thing that I'm personally looking forward to. I watched your last webinar on preparing for AOR, and I hope to see more useful webinars in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Neeti. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.